President has officially declared a national state of disaster. The Organization Undoing Tax Abuse is calling for government officials and leaders of the disaster funds to refrain from corruption. Over 1 billion rand has been put forward, to the rebuilding of KZN following these devastating floods in the week gone by. Just last night, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that the Solidarity Fund will be set up as a separate bank account in response to this disaster. Let's get your sense of how we could perhaps learn from history. Bring in Outa's Stefanie Fick. She's the Chief Legal Officer there, joining us now via our video link. And it's great to see you as always, Stefanie. Thanks very much indeed for making time. It does feel like a moment of deja vu, perhaps us approaching a situation where history might repeat itself. Billions of rand being set aside, a state of disaster being declared in a context where this money is desperately needed by the victims, in this case of the floods. But South Africans are sadly scarred by what we've seen take place less than a year ago. I mean, how do we respond to the situation where, quite frankly, we don't trust our leaders?
It is. I think I can only, agree with what you've just said, that we have reached a stage in South Africa where we are scared about what are going to happen to the money that are supposed to go to, the infrastructure, people that is struggling. Because you know what? I think we are really starting to see what corruption can do, and that corruption goes to the heart of each and every person in South Africa, no matter who you are. Because I think what we have now seen with, yes, nature, loads of water, is that our infrastructure was also not maintained. And now we need to fix it. And if we didn't have money to fix it in the first place, or to maintain it in the first place, how much money is it going to cost to get the infrastructure up to a standard again? And this is, speaking to people's livelihoods, everybody. I heard this morning, for example, the Durban harbour wasn't affected, but the infrastructure, the roads leading to the harbour, is of such a nature that people can't use it. That has, again, an effect on our economy. So just to see the effects of corruption is a tragedy. But then we are really at a point where we do not trust the fact that, yes, funds are made available, but will it reach the people that needs it most? Yes, we need a task force to make sure that the money goes to where it's supposed to go. Shouldn't we look at why we are struggling with getting a grip on corruption?
Right. And, I'll go so far as to say that the government officials who are in charge of at least reading responses to these kind of disasters are aware of the levels of disillusionment that many South Africans are feeling. It was Sihle Zikalala just on Sunday who said that, he's assured South Africans that his administration has learned from the COVID-19 crisis. He says, and I quote, "No amount of corruption, maladministration or fraud will be tolerated in the province." Sadly, doesn't have the best track record. And by him, I'm talking about the government, largely speaking.
Unfortunately, they have an opportunity to show us. I think everybody's done talking. Everybody's done listening. We need some good news with regards to something good happening. There are people that are really struggling. I don't even think I actually feel bad talking about it, because I don't think we really understand what some of the families are going through there. There's a lack of housing. I think a lot of the people that felt the brunt of this is, people in poorer communities, and that we need to stop talking about this. Show us that you will make sure that the money goes to where it is supposed to go, that we will have infrastructure again, that we will have electricity, that people will have water, that people will have proper housing. But you're right. I think history, hopefully history will not repeat itself. And I'm also reminded, wasn't a lady reappointed or chosen, that, there's a sword hanging over her head as well with regards to corruption. So the proof is in the pudding. Please show us for once that what you are saying you're going to do.
Yeah, you're referring, I think, to Zandi Lukumeto, who's just been re-elected as the chairperson of eThekwini. She's facing corruption charges in relation to a solid waste collection tender, ironically, which is a situation which may have very well exacerbated the crisis in KwaZulu-Natal, but perhaps that's a different discussion altogether. You were just touching on the idea of us really understanding just the devastation that people are feeling in KwaZulu-Natal. The scale of the calamity also makes it difficult for us to track the money, doesn't it? I mean, when there's so much that needs to be fixed and there's so much money going around, it becomes difficult for people who aren't devoting their lives, for instance, to following the money trail, to actually ascertain whether even just, for argument's sake, 5% of the money is being used by unscrupulous government officials. I mean, how do we tighten that kind of oversight role, keeping in mind, of course, that there are bodies in our Constitution who are actually mandated to do exactly that?
Yeah, it is, but I think this is now, I want to say this is crisis time. So in terms of oversight, I think what the government needs to show us, and specifically the government in KwaZulu-Natal, is transparency. Mm-hmm. Show us what you do, so that South Africans can have, and civil society organizations can help. I think on the one hand we want to say, it's easy to criticize, but we also want to help. So be transparent. If we want to see the tender documents, if you want to be part of the tender process, if we want to be part of the procurement process to see what is happening, give us the opportunity to have insight.
Yeah.
So it is, I think, what we need to do this round is let's test the fact that, be transparent. Show us what you do, so that I think we've seen how South Africans can come together to help one another. We've been put to the test, more than once, and I think now in KwaZulu-Natal, how communities can come together. Despite differences, we are actually a lot the same, and that people are willing to assist their neighbors in order to get over a tragedy.
Yeah.
So what we expect of government is to assist, but give us the oversight. Don't let, for example, and this has become a problem, that ordinary people can't have insight into what government is doing. As an organization, we need to, sometimes go to court in order to get the documents that we just, want to see. And what is government hiding? I don't want to know the intricate details of your business. Just want to know if you can do what government wants you to do because the people needs it. So I think transparency. Let's start with transparency and let the government gives us, as they go along, keep us informed.
Yeah.
And show us that you want us to be part of the process and keep you honest.
Absolutely. With no sense of irony, I think it was at the start of the floods when we were really starting to get a sense of how big a disaster this is. It was the education embassy in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, lamenting how many schools had been destroyed, but adding that, there's a backlog already of about several schools from the last floods that hit KwaZulu-Natal. And I'm saying this was ironic because in that moment, I don't think it had occurred to the MEC that points to the inefficiencies of the state in responding to disasters like this. It does bring into sharp focus questions around how long it takes to get us back to where we need to be. Charlotte Maxeke went up in flames, or part of it at least, some months ago. We're still waiting for that repair work to get underway. I mean, what are we going to say about the kind of repair work that needs to take place in KwaZulu-Natal?
Exactly. So that is where, you don't always want to criticize, but it is time to stop talking, show us. I mean, the provincial government has got its work cut out for itself there, and it's largely due to its own fault and corruption. I think it is really, we're really beginning to see what effects corruption has on South Africa communities, because again, the schools, if let's just let our mind go. How much money did we lose with state capture? How much money did we lose with the whole PPE corruption? And then think about what we could have done with that amount of money.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have worked on the infrastructure, even if, in all provinces, our roads are falling apart. How many schools could we build? How many roads could we make sure is safe for our kids to, go to school? So to make sure that kids do not have to get up 3, 4 in the morning and then walk to school that is so far. Give people running water, give people proper sanitation facilities. So much that we could have done with the money that's just purely lost, due to corrupt activities, giving tenders to people that is unable to perform the task. And then this is what you get, is that we are far behind in our infrastructure, making sure that the infrastructure speaks to who?
Absolutely.
Helps who?
Yeah.
South Africans. Each and every one of us should be in the best interest of all of us, and not the pockets of corrupt officials.
As it were, you speak about the real effects of corruption. You and I are speaking, Stefanie Fick, and there's breaking news from Eskom that we're being ramped up to stage 4 load shedding. We all know the history of Eskom and how we have gotten here to begin with. Let me thank you for your time. Really appreciate your take. Stefanie Fick, the Chief Legal Officer with the organization Undoing Tax Abuse.